Talking to God last night and yesterday, I pondered on this for over an hour before deciding, really feeling which way to go today. But we're going to go over a Bible story today. I remember growing up in different churches, and we had children's church, and I remember being a little kid, and we went to Sunday school and children's church, which we don't have that here. We all worship and grow and learn and teach together. But I remember sitting in children's church and going over this story, and it was very pretty. It was very nice. And everybody was happy, and it was a really great story. And the more I've dove into that, I realized that, you know what, if someone actually made a movie that absolutely represented the word, there's not a rating that it would fit in. Because we've studied it, and we've learned it, and we've grown up on it in such a nice G-rated so we can share it with our kids and everything. But as adults, this goes a whole different realm. And so this morning, and I wrote my intro. I rarely write an intro, but I had to get the greats right. Our story begins 1,656 years after Adam was created. We stepping way back. With Adam's great grandson, ninth great grandson, Noah. So, this is after Adam's third son, Seth. This is his direct descendant, and we are going to begin our story this morning in our study in Genesis chapter 6. So those of you running display, you can load up Genesis chapter 6, chapter 7, and chapter 8. And everyone just put your crock pots on hold. We're not going to cover every scripture in here, but I didn't put scriptures in my notes. We're going to read it straight from the Word this morning. And we're just going to go over the storyline and just remember what God did for Noah. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. And it came to pass that when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born of them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Make a note of that. Verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, also known as Nephilim. And also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of the men, and they bare children to them that became mighty, men which were of old, men of renown. Now, Pastor Donna did an amazing study on the days of Noah. If you have not had a chance to watch it, you need to go back and find it. If you don't know, find some of our team. We'll get it to you on that behind the scenes thing, because it's not public. So those of us in our church body here, you need to watch it. You need to study it because it's important. Fallen angels during this time frame, those that were fallen with Lucifer, that you have all these different craters in the world that were probably created when everybody went splat. There you go. Now we're all getting into the thick of it, aren't we? I love this. They were taking humans as wives, and their offspring became known as Nephilim. Now I know there's a whole ton of people watching this that are now going to have an argument that that's not what it meant. And there are so many different discussions about what the sons of God were. I have no other option but this. They became men of renown, which means they became positions of honor. And I use that term lightly. Authority. They made a name for themselves because those men of renown, those fallen angels, knew things that the rest of the humans did not know. One translation and commentary used the word tyrant and warlords. Now start to ponder and think what that world looked like. You can read in news, you can look at third world countries, you can look at different states in the U.S., and they are run by tyrants and warlords, whether or not they're doing controls, but it's happening nowadays. Continue with Genesis chapter 5. Now, I want you to make note of Genesis chapter 5. And I'm going to make a correction. That spelling in Genesis chapter 5 is wrong. The spelling in Genesis chapter 5, verse 1, it says, and God, capital G, capital O, capital D, which means this is God the Father, looked down and said, the wickedness of man was great in the earth, that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart and only evil continued. Which means what was going on in everyone's thoughts, everyone's minds, was that every thought, every intention, every purpose, every desire of man had turned evil. Everything, their purposes were for evil intentions. Verse 6, you have another member of the Godhead speaking. And it repented the Lord, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, which is the Word, before made flesh. Both members of the Godhead are standing up, looking down at earth, going, this is absolutely insane. This is the heart and intentions. The Lord, who was the creator, God the Father spoke it. God the Father thought it. God the Word spoke it. Holy Spirit put it in motion. But the Lord Jesus Christ, before he was flesh, the Word is who created, who was the hands-on. He repented. He's like, I am sorry that we created man. Now before you even get to the point of going, is this really possible? You look at this, it says in verse 6, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Now, when Pastor Donna asked me if I went fire or water this morning, the water has just as much fire in it as the fire teaching. And we'll get to the fire teaching because it was on Ananias and Sapphira. This one isn't any easier. Because when you look at the condition of man, and that word, when it says the word repented in verse chapter 6, it literally means, when you look at the translation, he sighed. Ever seen a parent, or if you're a parent, when your kid is doing something so stupid, you go, and you realize right then and there, every bit, I got kids grinning more than I got parents grinning. I'm not looking at anyone. When you have that sigh, you're at that place going, ah. Or when you're in leadership and you're dealing with sheep or people and you're like, I've got to deal with this. He breathed heavily. It wasn't some supernatural it was a heavy grieving. He was grieved to his core. Don't think the Godhead can't be grieved. He was sorry he created man. That was what the earth had become. That he looked down at his creation and he looked over it and he went, we shouldn't have done this. We now got to fix it. Verse 7 says, and the Lord said, I will destroy man who I have created off the face of the earth. I picture like taking a Lego set. Well, for some of you have never built a Lego set and you should. Go buy one. Not that I'm promoting everything about Lego, but if you've never taken the opportunity to build a Lego set, and I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, and I don't mean your kids' Duplo blocks, not the big ones. I mean an intricate couple hundred pieces that you have to take the pages one at a time. Go build a Lego set. When it's finished and you're like, ah, and I don't mean a $20 one, a good one, that it takes time, then consider throwing it off the top of your house. See, I know my Lego people. Some of us are going, when you consider, I won't even go there. That'll get me off on a tangent. That's not in my notes. I shouldn't have went there. But he grieved, but he considered wiping everything out. And the Lord said, this is the word, I will destroy man who I have created off the face of the earth. Both man, beasts, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Before you go, yeah, but that was then. Matthew chapter 24, we are going to go there. Matthew chapter 24, 36 through 39. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days of Noah, they were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them away, so shall also the coming of the Son may be. You can look at this in two different ways. The condition of the world is the same as Noah, or how surprising it was. I'm not taking chances in my life. The world that we live in is getting crazier and crazier and more upside down, as in the days of Noah. There is a more of a, it is more imperative now than it was yesterday to be interceding and prayed up for this world. That everyone that possibly can get saved before God comes back, we need to be praying and loving them into the fold. Not beating them up, not condemning them, not even judging, because that's not our job. But loving them in there, loving the lost and deceived, because here's the thing. Some of us are believers and we're still lost and deceived. We got to get our heart lined up. Back to verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Grace is not just a New Testament concept. It's throughout the scriptures. Verse 9, and these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. Noah was righteous. The way he lived his life and conduct and his character was enough that God, in the midst of this entire wicked world, looked across and went, there is nothing. I'm going to wipe everyone out. And as he scanned the world, he went, oh, wait, there's Noah. Wait, there's Noah. Noah's just. Noah's righteous. He's got a good conduct. His concepts, his thinking is good. He's pure in his generations. And you can take that one of two different ways. Either his heart has been pure in his life and how he's lived it, and he's started to teach his children correctly, or it wasn't mixed with the Nephilim that we were talking about earlier. I can assume, but I'm not going to assume. I'm just taking it for what it says. He was perfect in his generations. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We get the generations. We get the storyline. Verse 11 through 13 is Noah, the word telling Noah his plan to destroy the earth. He gave him everything he needed to know. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence, which means it was overflowing. It was abundant. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them from the earth. And verse 14 begins the blueprint of how to save mankind. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shall pitch it without and within with pitch. And this is also the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, the height of it 30 cubits, and a window. A window. I want you to remember, a window. Shall thou make to the ark, and a cubit shall thou finish it above. Oh, by the way, a cubit is 18 inches. That's not a picture window. This isn't that beautiful window you put on the side with a balcony for a cruise. This is one window, and you're going to finish it above, which means it was in the roof. This is important. Thou shalt set it in the side, and the door of the ark thou shalt set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third story shalt thou make it. All right, let's break that down a little bit. Let's work this through, because I want to know what this actually looks like. Gopher wood, completely unidentified to this day. Doesn't exist. Now, there are some people believe it's cypress, maybe, but it's unidentifiable. Kind of fun, don't you think? Let's see. The rooms translate to nest or compartments. The pitch was resin from trees mixed with charcoal. I personally think they used the gopher wood trunks, melted it down, added charcoal to it, and that's what the pitch is over, but there aren't anymore. Verse 15 talks about the lengths. 300 cubits is about 510 feet long. 50 cubits for the width is 85 feet wide, and the height was 30 cubits, 51 feet high. Do you know what that capacity averages out to? 1.88 million cubic feet, equivalent to the cargo space of 450 semi-trailers. We had a wonderful opportunity with the OA a few years ago. I say a few. How long has it been? Few. The other day, and we got to tour the art exhibit up in Kentucky. Will you load up that first picture for me, please? Please? There we go. There is a life-size, close to replica there in Kentucky of the Ark, on the Ark Encounter. Absolutely one of the coolest things. You should all go see it. I can't wait for the OA to do that again as a field trip, because that was really cool. Now, the size there really doesn't give you. The second picture shows some of our kids next to the outside of it to give you a representation of the size. Now, let me put it back on the first picture, and we'll leave it there for a while. Let me ask you a question. If the Lord came to you, build it, because we're going to see rain. What's rain? They had never seen it to that point. I need you to build a boat. I'm going to give you the blueprints, the specs, but I need you to build it. And you're going to put one door on the side. There's one door over there. Now, I will say that they put a bunch of windows for light in it, but it says a window, and you're going to put it in the roof. I wonder sometimes on the significance of the one window and where I landed in, me personally in my journey, because we're talking about building a boat. It's just going to be on new property, and it'll seat more people. but we're building an ark. I think about the one window to be, there was nothing to distract them. You get one 15 or 18-inch window in the top of the roof. How much are you going to see from that window? You might get direction, but if it's raining and storming, you don't know which way you're going. You're not getting distracted by the waves. You're not getting distracted by the wind. You're just, okay, I'm trusting God because it made them look up to him. Now, this is my personal theory. It caused Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, their wives, to focus to the one true God through one little teeny tiny window. All right, verse 17. You can lose the picture for a little bit. Verse 17 through 22, we now have judgment revealed. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh. Wherein it is the breath of life from under heaven. Wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And every living thing of flesh, 2 of every sort, shall bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, of cattle after their kind, of the creepy things. Yes, he brought snakes on the ark on purpose. Just saying. And all the little creepy things that run and cry that everyone screams at when you see them in your house. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive, and take thee unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Verse 22, I love this verse. And thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Noah did everything he was told to do. He didn't say most of it. He said all that he was commanded to do. Now, when you start looking at the timeline of here, it took Noah approximately 100 years to build the ark. He was about 500 years old when this first started going on. He was right around 600 when it started raining. It took 100 years to see the vision that God gave Noah come to something he could touch, to see finished. He had faith and believed 100 years that flood was coming before he ever saw the first raindrop. Let's see, where do I want to go from here? We're going to go to chapter 7. Verse 7 and verse 1, and the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. I think Noah was still being tested for that 100 years. See, once God gives you a vision of something to be able to do, it doesn't mean the testing's over with. You still have to prove you can operate the vision. Keep that in mind. Of every clean beast, verse 2, take thee in by 7s, the male and his female, and of the beasts that were not clean by 2, and the male and his female. Of fowls also the air by 7s, and the male and female to keep seen alive unto the face of all earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy off the face of the earth. This was the reminder. He said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to take 7 of this. You're going to take male and female over here. You're going to take these people, and you're going to bring all your food into the boat because I'm going to wipe everything else. And Noah did according, verse 5, to all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. So somewhere between 75 and 100 years. From the first time that God said it's going to rain to the waters came. And Noah went in verse 7, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Verse 8, of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, and of the fowls and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 by 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the females, as God had commanded Noah. If you need to know how many genders there are, read chapter 6 and 7. It says it plenty of time, male and female. Yep. Verse 10, and it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. Here we go. The waters start to come. The water starts to bubble up. When you read verses 11 through 24, it starts to explain all the details. Noah brings his family into the ark. The Lord seals the door. Let's see, 600-year-old Noah's life in the 2nd month of the 17th day of the month, the same day. Well, you just gave Noah's age, didn't you? And the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of the heaven were open, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth and the sons of Noah and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them in the ark. they and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. They went in, and unto Noah into the ark, 2 by 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him. The Lord shut him in. Noah didn't close the door. And I know this is simple, and I know this is probably, you're like, well, maybe it was just he gave the instruction. No, I don't think so. Because everywhere else it said God told Noah. Here it says the Lord shut him in. How many of us in our journey have we felt the Lord shut us in from ever letting us mess it up? Just be real for a second. But the Lord, once he brought everyone in, and he set him up in what was going to protect him and keep him, he shut him in so Noah didn't step out and no one else came in. There are times that in our journey, in our life, in our ark, that God is preserving the vision he's put in our world. Individually, families, church, ministry, as the corporate church, there are times, we can see it in Scripture, that the Lord came in here and he shut it up. He blocked people from being involved in it. Why? To save the people he was trying to save. So when your world all of a sudden gets closed in, and you're like, well, I don't have any friends. Maybe there's a point in that. Well, maybe I don't have this and this and this going on in my life. Well, maybe God is preserving you in your own private little ark, and he doesn't want anybody coming in and interfering it. He may have shut you in to save you. Let's keep going. Let's see, where do we want to go from here? He seals the door. Verses 17 to 24 is the story of the waters. Talks about the waters prevailed. Verse 18, or increased greatly upon the earth. And the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. Verse 20, 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were also covered. Think of the highest peak in the world, Mount Everest, highest peak in the world, 15 cubits above there. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of pressure. Upon all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. 22, all in whose nostrils were the breath of life, of all that was in the day, dry land, died. This was not a light judgment. This was total annihilation, except for Noah, his wife, his kids, and their wives. Every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground. Verse 23, both man and cattle and the creeping things and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. You think your journey in the ark is long? They were stuck in there, locked in 150 days. At this point, I've got a great timeline here in a minute. Chapter 8, verse 1. And God, this is God the Father, remembered. He took note. He pondered him. He goes, wait a second, we can't forget about Noah. And every living thing that was in the cattle that was made in the ark. And God, the Lord, made a wind to pass over the earth and the waters. I don't know how to pronounce this word, but it means recede. So we're going to Harper paraphrase it a little bit. So God the Father looked down in the midst of destroying everything else, said, hey, there's Noah and his crew and all living things. And the Lord looks and goes, oh yeah, there is. We got to get him from point A to point B. And he created a wind to blow him across. The wind started to cause the ground to start, the waters to recede and subside. The ark drifted by the wind till the waters were low enough, as we continue in chapter 8, till the waters were low enough for the ark to rest on Mount Ararat, or one of the mountains of Ararat. Now that means it had to get low enough, below the 15 cubits, low enough on that trip, so that way the ark could land on some kind of ground, because he had the water so high that the ark would be unhindered. Then there were still days before the mountains could be seen in dry land. Moses and his family were in this boat for a really long time. So let's talk about the timeline for a second. 40 days, the heavy rain and floods covered the earth. It rained for 40 straight days. They had never seen rain before this point. The ground opened up, the sky emptied out, and water flooded in every direction for 40 days. 150 days, the total time the flood waters prevailed at their highest point before they ever began to recede for 150 days. That's at 15 meters above the highest point. For 74 more days, the period it took for the waters to recede enough for the top of the mountains to become visible. Are you, my math people in here, are you counting this up? It was 3 more weeks, the interval that Noah spent sending out a raven and a dove to test if the earth was dry. 3 more weeks. It was then 2 months, the final waiting period between spotting dry ground and receiving God's commandment to exit the boat. In total, this did not make me smile when I read it. Noah and his family and all of the animals. Austin, I heard, you told me your story about your cat this morning, and you know that smell. Consider how many of you own animals. Now we have dogs. You have dogs and cats is one thing. Let's add pigs, cattle, snakes, spiders, unfortunately mice. And you add all of that in there. Now how he handled the cleanup duty, there weren't instructions in the Bible for that. I'm sure God gave Noah that information. He just didn't write it down. I would love to know that information, but he didn't. Noah and his family and all the animals were safely aboard for 1 year and 10 days. 375 days. Can I have the boat again? On that. Locked in here. Ponder it for just a moment. An entire year floating, adrift, trusting in God with one window that and it's raining. I think that fits perfectly for the storyline. Completely adrift. All right. Chapter 8, let's go to verse 15 through 19 real quick. Let's see, where do we want to go? Verse 15, and God spoke unto Noah, saying, go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee. I really appreciate God being specific. Because if God would have forgot to mention somebody in that list, Noah would have left him in the boat. Noah, it's time for you to leave. What about my wife? There's that conversation going, I need to know what, I told you, but he said, no. Go forth, thy wife, thy sons, and the sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, all the flesh, both of the fowl and of the cattle, and of the creeping thing, and the creepeth upon the earth. They that may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kind went forth out of the ark. Be fruitful and multiply. God gave Noah every instruction when to get on the boat and when to get off. The thing that happened next, this verse 20 through 22, was absolutely amazing to me. I had seen the pictures. I'd grown up with the children's story and everything, but there was something about it that made it more personable. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings to the Lord. Noah praised. He gave offerings of praise and thanksgiving for all the things that God had done for him over that year and 10 days. Verse 21 is where it gets me. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor. I don't know how many times I've read this, but it said the Lord smelled. It just reminds you we really are made after him. There are things that we do that, that's what we're created. We're made after his, so detailed that it reminds us that he smelled a sweet savor. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake. For the imagination of a man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. While the earth remaining, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. It came with a promise. It wasn't just that God saw the situation of the world. He saw it. He was grieved. He was like, this is absolutely atrocious. This is not what I created. God then provided Noah a plan of escape. Not just to escape what was happening, but to escape judgment. Showed him the blueprint, how to build an ark. Gave him every little intricate detail, how to build it with the gopher wood, how to make it with resin, not with asphalt, not with other things, but this is what I want you to do. Inside, outside, you're going to make rooms, you're going to make nests, you're going to bring all these things in here. He brought provisions. The Lord provided provisions, not just for Noah, but everyone that he was bringing in. Provided provisions during the deluge. One translation talks about when the floodwaters opened, it was a deluge. And it's raining. He gave provision during the storm. When everything was absolutely rough. I mean, you figure that boat was absolutely designed where it wouldn't capsize. And you read history, and in 5 or 6 other countries and other beliefs from China, Iran, Turkey, there's a couple other ones I read, Greece, they all have their same story of Noah. The boat looks a little different, even Hawaii. Have their same stories. Where God provided provision. He provided provision in the storm, in the midst while others perished and were in judgment. God provided a safe place for Noah, his family, and all the animals during the aftermath of judgment. During the time it took for everything to settle down. Provide them with a safe place to land. Give them their own personal little promised land. That they could get out of the boat, step out, and gave them a promise that this would never happen again. Over a year and 10 days from start to finish, God provided Noah and his family everything he needed for a year and 10 days from start to finish. But what didn't God give Noah? 2 things. What did he not give him? There's 2. There's probably more, but 2 for today. 2 missing pieces of this puzzle. Wow. Quiet in here. Can I have the boat again? Tell me what's missing. Who said a rudder? There's no rudder. So the boat, the ark, was never given a rudder, which means it wasn't in the intention of Noah to steer. Noah was on that boat for a year and 10 days, fully trusting God to take him where he's supposed to go with no option to steer himself where he wanted to go. What's the second thing he didn't give him? A map. He didn't know where he was going to end up. Noah and his family had to trust God that the rain was coming before they had ever seen it. Noah and his family had to trust God in the plans and the vision, which he had never seen anything like it in his lifetime, over 500 years. He had never seen rain, and he'd never seen a ship this size. Leave it back up there. This size. Noah and his family had to trust God of where they were going and where and when they would end up on their promised land. He had to believe for a year and 10 days that God would put him where he was supposed to be. He didn't get to choose. He didn't get to say, hey, I want to be here. I want to go over this direction. Can I go see this over here? No. He blindly walked into a ship. The word closed the door, sealed it except for an 18-inch window, and Noah and his entire family with all those animals blindly trusted where God was going to take them. God was the architect of the vision, the engineer of the vision, the propulsion of the vision, the rudder of the vision, and the guy who controlled the keys. I highlighted that one for me. Here's where we are this morning. We're all in a journey, aren't we? We all got places, things that God's put on our heart to do. But here's the true of it. He wants us to trust him and allow him to provide everything for the direction of our life. Every single piece. He wants us to trust him to give us the blueprint of what our life should look like. Give us the blueprint of how to build the ship we live in, where we want to go, to be able to trust him to design every detail of our life. Wants us to trust him with the vision and purpose of our life. I don't think it was Noah's original purpose and vision to build an ark. It's not what Noah set out to do, but this is where God brought him. God wants us to trust him with how fast or slow we travel on our journey of redemption and promise. For those of us who are in a hurry up and get there, he's going to make it a little slower for us so we work out of our control issues. And I'm saying we. I'm in the same boat as you. No pun intended. For those of us who are trying to drag our feet a little bit, like we even mentioned Friday night, then he's going to put us in a little faster pace because he wants us to speed up and not be so lazy. For those of us who have control issues and a little OC that we want to micromanage everything he's going to put us in a boat, seal the door, and give us a 18-inch window that only thing we get to do is look up to him and trust on him and eliminate the micromanaging. He wants us to trust him in the timeline of our journey. There are some of us in our life that we have been working hard to work on our spiritual life, and we probably are a little bit overboard with it, and we're overanalyzing, and we're working too much, and we're looking at all little details and just way too much, and he's going to say, I need you to slow down, and some of the rest of us, he wants us to speed up and actually work on it instead of petting it. He wants us to trust him that he'll steer us where we need to go, to ordain our steps, where he wants us to end up, not where we want to go.